I was 35 whenever I started my own business, and that was in the bathroom sector, and sold that business 10 years later for 8 figures. So in hindsight, that was a fairly remarkable journey, but at the time it didn't necessarily feel that way. I don't think people need to be in a rush. I worked for a man before that who started his first business when he was 50 and sold it for many millions when he was 60.
Meet Stephen Allaway, the entrepreneur who started, built and sold Aqualla, one of the most respected bathroom brands in the UK and Ireland. Having left school with very few academic qualifications, Stephen found his niche in sales and customer service, believing that with the right attitude, a good work ethic, willingness to learn, you have the foundations for creating great opportunities. And it is with these traits he started his businesses, built teams, and established sales revenue from 0 to 10 plus million annually. Stephen knows what it takes to grow a business from the ground up, and this is one conversation you cannot miss out on. So grab a cup of coffee, grab a cup of tea, whatever you fancy, and prepare to be inspired, because you're watching the official Young Hunger podcast. My name is Michael Burgess, and enjoy the episode.
I'm Stephen Allaway, delighted to be on the Young Hunger podcast and looking forward to today's conversation.
Mr. Stephen Allaway.
That's me.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Michael.
Thanks for inviting us to your house as well.
Yeah, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. I've really enjoyed the last 15-20 minutes while you've been setting up and just having a chat. So
Yeah.
Good to see you're on the electrolytes as well. Hydration's important.
Yeah, thanks very much. I think it's good to always get talking to the guests beforehand, sort of builds a wee bit of rapport, and you can sort of sort of feel each other out nearly, and
Yeah.
sort of rather than just going straight into it. I think it's quite hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, sort of.
Yeah, no, you've a good way about you where it's comfortable speaking. We went for a coffee there a few weeks ago to talk about this, and this is a little bit outside my comfort zone and something that I wouldn't be that familiar with, but you make people feel easy, so that's a good trait to have for what you're doing. So.
Yeah, well, we just like honest conversations and the mindset and sort of figuring out how you are where you are, and I guess how we can teach others, especially young people, I guess wee nuggets of information that you might have and be able to share and stuff. But for someone who hasn't came across Steve Allaway before, who exactly are you and what are you all about?
So I, thinking back, I'm not particularly academic. I just about scraped into grammar school. Went to Regent House, Newtonards, and from fairly early on in my school life knew I wasn't clever whenever it came to academics. And I left school in 5th form with the lowest GCSE results in my form. I think there was 103 or 104 people in my year in school. And I left with 1 GCSE, it was maths, and all the rest I failed. So I'm not academic. Whenever I left school, I got into sales, and I really found something then that I enjoyed. And I think most people in life enjoy the things that they're slightly better at. But I've always enjoyed talking to people. I think a big part of sales is listening as well and being adaptable. And from a young age, I would like to think that I've kind of listened wherever I've got the opportunity to hear some knowledge. And I went through probably various different sales roles up until I was 35 whenever I started my own business, and that was in the bathroom sector. And sold that business 10 years later for 8 figures. So in hindsight, that was a fairly remarkable journey, but at the time it didn't necessarily feel that way. I started the business probably through angst. I worked for a company in the bathroom industry in 2008, 2009, who suffered badly through the financial crisis then. I had a young family to support. I was married. We had a mortgage and bills to pay, and I always had a little bit of entrepreneurial spirit, but it was angst that drove me into actually doing something about it. So I borrowed some money off my parents. I had some savings of my own, and I drew up a business plan and went to the bank and asked them for £20,000 and bought $70,000 worth of taps from China. I'd never been to China before. So it's a little bit of a risk, buying £70,000 worth of stuff that you've never, or $70,000 worth of stuff that you've never seen before online. And they arrived the week before Christmas in 2011, and the bathroom industry closes for 2 weeks over Christmas, and I spent those 2 weeks filled with dread. What have I done? I've spent my life savings, I've spent money I borrowed from my parents, money I borrowed from the bank on this, and had all of these irrational thoughts about how much could I get for scrap metal for these taps if I have to sell them. But long story short, the business did exceptionally well. Sold it when I was mid-40s, stayed on. But by that stage, we had 65 employees, and I stayed on in the business for 3 years as managing director. Left a year and a half ago, and since then I've been doing a number of different projects, some non-exec work with Invest NI. I've invested in a few companies that I'm non-executive director with. I do some voluntary work. I'm a chair of a local charity called Aspire NI, and yeah, I've quite a few projects. I'm probably as busy now as I've ever been.
Yeah, is it 2011 you started?
Yeah, 2011 started the business. Yeah. So yeah, that was then. At that point in time, my mum had just left the Bank of Ireland, and I asked my mum if she would come in and process some orders, and I'll go out and do the selling. And that's kind of how it started, and from there, it just really built up over the course of 2 or 3 years. That time I was working full time as well as running the business, which was fairly demanding. I was working 80-hour weeks at the time, which isn't sustainable for anybody. But after 2 or 3 years, the business was in a position where I could leave my full-time job and focused on that. And at that stage, it really started to ramp up. And looking back, a big part of the success in the business, it was the people in it and the network that I built up and the team that were around me, and some of the connections that I had, both work colleagues, customers, suppliers, all really important, those relationships.
You touched on a couple of really interesting points there, because like whenever I'm sitting here and I'm looking across the table, I see like a successful guy, amazing house, amazing life. But before even 2011 and things, what was like a young Steve like? Was he this entrepreneurial go-getter? Was he this?
Yeah, I think looking back, I in my late teens, early 20s, I was probably, I just wanted to be accepted. I was probably like a lot of young men are, wasn't really the master of my own destiny. I just went along with the crowd. I enjoyed myself. I had a great upbringing. I've had lots of good friends. Became a dad at a very young age. Was a dad at 21. And yeah, I've always been pretty happy, thankfully. I'm pretty content. Probably don't look at myself any different now to what I was then. I think even though it depends on whose viewpoint, but even though I've had a successful career, I don't feel any different. I still get the same feelings of contentment with things, the same feeling as joy with things. I'm still the same person, and I think there's going to be quite a misunderstanding or a perception that if you sell a business or come into lots of money, all your problems will be solved. And I can speak from experience that nothing apart from material things really change. The things that bring me joy. I suppose the big thing that money does give you options, but the things that bring me joy in life don't cost much or any money. So who was he as a younger person? Probably the same person as I am now, I would say.
Yeah. Did you ever feel like the lack of self-confidence whenever leaving school with one GCSE? Like, how did that like affect you mentally? Like, did you leave with less confidence, or what was that self-image like?
I think I was pretty self-aware that it just wasn't academic, and I think looking back now, you know, smart, clever are words that shouldn't necessarily be associated with academia. And I probably looked at myself as not being smart or not being clever. But that's not a bad thing. If you're not academic, that's fine. The school curriculum back then, and probably not so much now, does not support the people like I am and I was. I've never really been a visual learner. I'm very hands-on. If you and I sat now and you told me how to use the equipment that Ross is using, hi Ross, come on in Ross, Ross. So if Ross started telling me how to use all this equipment, I wouldn't have a clue how to use it.
Yeah.
But if Ross brought that camera down or that camera and started showing me how to use it, press this button or move that or adjust that, then that's how I learned. So
Okay.
how do you learn about the equipment, Ross?
Well, I'd say this all starts back in the early days. I used to make like YouTube videos when I was younger.
Okay.
So like kind of gaming videos, and that's where it all kind of stemmed off.
Yeah.
We had like a little cabin down in Fermanagh. I had one mate who lives up the road. My mate Shay, actually, shout out to Shay. I've known years.
Hi Shay.
He taught me how to make my first ever YouTube video, and that's, I think, where it all stemmed off. So I started going down the editing route, and when I was around 15, I just kept making edit videos and things like that for smaller little YouTubers, and then kind of got into like little groups, kept learning more and more and more about the trade of it, basically.
Yeah.
Then, similar to yourself, I wasn't academic, but somehow I managed to get about, I'd say, 9 GCSEs with only going into school maybe, I don't know, a handful of times every now and then.
Right.
So just about got there, but I couldn't hack it. So dropped out during A-levels, went to tech for a year to do film and TV.
Yeah.
And that's where I kind of learned a bit more about it all. And then ended up dropping out of that too, a year into it. I just went through Prince's Trust, King's Trust now to do like a program. Stuck with them, did another one. It was like an enterprise program. Met a guy who was in the film industry, the big Thomas Pollock. So shout out to Thomas too. And he took
Thomas.
me, he then took me under his wing to do like behind the scenes content for music videos, short films, and just anything he'd going on recent, like, to be honest. So that's honestly where I learned everything about lighting, the setting up cameras, what kind of equipment to use, and all the likes of that. And I kind of just became obsessed with it. And then that's it. One of the greatest universities that's free is YouTube at the end of the day, and I just locked in, zoomed into it. Any little thing I wanted to learn, I would just start doing it.
Yeah.
And just became obsessed.
Same as me. Practical learner.
You're actually very similar. I think.
I think a lot of learners are practical, you know, and I don't think the school system is necessarily cut out for people who do learn in my way or Ross's way, for that matter. It's kind of, I think it should be encouraged more. I think there should be a lot more practicality in school and in the education system to go alongside. Obviously, the academia is important, but digesting of information, I quite often find, comes through a collaboration of seeing and doing. There's probably not enough doing in school.
Definitely.
It's actually pretty interesting that, like, even like three of us on the podcast is pretty mad, like, isn't it? Three cameras in your kitchen, like, you know what I mean?
It is. It's a bit surreal.
It is a bit surreal, like, everyone's got their own like journey and stuff as well, like. And like I said, these are both like super similar and stuff. Was there any like limiting beliefs on that? Was there anything like sort of?
I don't think so. I think if I think back to then, I probably spent 3 or 4 months after school doing nothing. And my mum was a big support to me. She dug out a job advert for Curry's the electrical wholesaler. They had never been in Northern Ireland before, and they were opening up their first store in Bangor. And there was an advert in the paper to go on the YTP scheme. It was £37.50 a week, and my mum kind of, you know, said, why don't you go for this? And went and did that. And for me, that's when my education started, and my education was very much around sales, customer service, you know, having good values. I think sales quite often 20, 30 years ago could be perceived as almost like a wee bit cloak and dagger. But there was a transition then of sales becoming, there's actually real good values, and there's good principles in sales. You'll obviously get your snake oil salesmen and used car salesmen, of which I was one for a while, but I not the snake oil, used cars. I like I always tried to do things in a good way, and never would have tried to rip anybody off. And I was fortunate to spend years in sales working alongside people who did it in a really good, constructive, positive way. And I learnt the importance of listening throughout a sales process, the importance of gauging, the importance of building relationships. So, I didn't feel disadvantaged leaving school.
I remember asking Ross was on the pod actually.
Yeah.
A year ago, 2 years ago or something, I remember.
Yeah, I think too.
And I asked him this question, but I feel like before you put all the money into buying all the equipment and things and what you were selling, was there there must have been like a seed of or a vision of like a plan of this is what I want to do, I can see this working. Was there like a spark or a moment?
Yeah, I think so. Going back to what we were talking about earlier and the value in relationships and networking, I'd built up enough really good contacts around Northern Ireland here in the bathroom industry where I felt that they would give me an opportunity. I would obviously have to do things right. And I can't remember the moment I kind of decided in my head that I was going to do it, but I drew up a business plan, and I had one or two people who I knew who had went through the experience of drafting a business plan before. And Anne and I went away and stayed in a local hotel for 2 nights, and Anne went and used the spa and the pool and all of those types of things, and I sat in the bedroom and drew up the business plan. And whenever that business plan was finished, I looked at it and felt that it was a real vision. There was no turning back at that point in time. That was it. The wheels were in motion. So I think quite often getting your thoughts down on the paper can be good accountability. It can really be a reference point for you to look at and remember what you want to do and why you want to do it. So big believer in business plans. I've helped other people write them. I have written other ones myself. I'm just in the process of writing one at the minute for a startup business, and I think they can be an excellent tool to keep you focused.
If you could go back and have 2 minutes with that, Steve, is there anything you would say to him?
If I could go back then, I would say just go for it. Don't be scared of things not working out. And if you have a desire that you want to go and do something and give something a go, I know everybody says it, and it's sometimes can be just words or a bit of a throwaway comment, but we're only here once. You gotta follow your ambition, your heart, your dreams, whatever it is, to give those things a go. And it's easy for me to say when I'm talking about the business because I'm out the other end and it worked. But even if it hadn't worked, there would be a point in time in my life where I would have regretted not doing it if I hadn't have done. So yeah, I would encourage anybody that I ever speak to, if they have a desire and a want to do something, to follow it. And for me, that writing it down, putting a plan together can be a really good way of moving it forward.
What I like sort of about yourself and stuff is you started, built, scaled and sold your business and things. Was that always the plan, or? Yeah,
I think it was. Certainly starting it and building it were. If I had have known in the early days that I was going to exit the business at some point in time, I would have been absolutely delighted. I didn't really set out to start a business to sell it, but If it had been an opportunity at some point, it would have been yeah, really happy.
Was there any like, you could say maybe like any like specific strategies you used to scale it? And what made it work? Like what made the actual?
Well, we've talked about it already, about the network of people and the relationships that you have. That ultimately will be the success or failure of many businesses. But yeah, I think having those relationships is important. But if you're looking for something from a practical point of view, I think the two things that I found most successful whenever I was running the business, and it very much applied to the point where I sold the business, it's having good data that's translated into good reports. And that's not just numbers. There's probably three components to those reports. One is commentary, which is getting your thoughts and opinions and those of the people in the business down again on a bit of paper and saying what's going on in the business and why. And the second component would be graphs and charts. I'm pictorial, I like to see the pictures, so I like to see trend lines, I like to see where market share is, I like to see where the market opportunities are. I like to see a rolling chart of profitability, and it gives you a direction of travel rather than just a point in time. And then the third component is the numbers. So a really good management report might contain 5 or 6 pages, but within that you can see how the business is doing. And if you produce a catalogue of those, if you produce one of those every month, and you have those as a library, that documentation and information, if somebody ever comes to want to buy your business, those are gold. So that's the first. And the second is that management report will tell you where you are now. It'll tell you why you've got there, and it'll tell you where some of the opportunity is, and that'll lead on to a plan then. And the plan is the same data and information, but for the future, and also how you're going to achieve that. So from a practical point of view, it doesn't matter the size of the business, doesn't matter if you're a sole trader or a multi-million-pound company or more. For me, those two documents are fundamental. I think anybody, if you're a tradesperson, if you are a beautician or you're an eyebrow specialist, you should have a management report or a monthly report and a forecasted business plan. And those things are not only useful for running your business, but if you ever want to sell it, they're gold. And I also believe, having been through the due diligence of the sale of a business, running your business like you're about to sell it, even if you're not, is a really good discipline to have. If someone comes to buy your business, what things should you have? Well, those same things that you would need to give that person are also the same things that can give you real knowledge and input into how your business should be run. And going forward. So
one thing I was really wanting to ask you was, whenever we had breakfast and stuff a couple of weeks ago, you mentioned about like work culture. And the culture in like the workplace and things, and how good it was, that was like a fundamental thing you wanted. For someone who hasn't or watched or know about your business, what exactly did you do, and how did you grow a good, positive work culture?
There are different components to that. So there'll be practical things that we did. And examples of some of those were we gave everybody their birthday off. Any parents who worked in Aqualla that had children of school age, we offered to pay for the children's school uniform at the start of every year. We know it's an expensive thing for parents. We would have got people into the business to support people's well-being, both physically and mentally. One of the best things I think we did was subsidised or provided Randox health testing for the people who worked in the business. And the reason I say that's one of the best is people were going to Randox, getting a full, they called it every man or every woman, were the kind of health readings, and you got a full big pamphlet that would have told you all of these things about your health. And off the back of that, I would have seen people making healthier choices. They would have been more active. They would have been eating better.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that as an employer is really good. You know, it would have made me really proud to do some of those things. So they're all practical things. I think the way I talk to people, I would like to think that everybody in the business felt that I was part of the team and would have helped people wherever possible. Anytime that something went wrong for people, I would have tried to help the best I could. An example springs to mind that I'm not sure many people in work even to this day know about was there was somebody who worked in the business and they were taking their son over to see Liverpool play football, and something happened where I can't remember, the tickets were duplicated or something happened where the guy and his son couldn't go. And within a few months, I had and another co-worker bought some corporate tickets for Liverpool and gave them to him to take his son over. See, getting an opportunity like that as an employer to have that positive impact on some of the people you're working with, not only is it a really, really nice thing personally, there's a selfish part about that because it makes me feel good, but also from a commercial business performance, they're totally committed to the business if the business looks after people like that. So that fed into company culture. And I also think information sharing is important. That management report that we talked about a little while ago, that's not something that went in my drawer and was top secret. That would have been shared with the people in the business. I'm sure you've heard the story before about, I think an ex-president went to the Kennedy Space Center and there was a janitor sweeping the floor, and the president asked the janitor, "What do you do here?" And he goes, "I'm helping send a rocket to the moon." And that was part of the philosophy. It wasn't like, and that's an analogy. In work, we wouldn't have seen someone who worked in a warehouse as your job is to pack boxes. Your job is representing our brand. How that box is packed and how that goes out to a customer influences the whole business, and everybody has their role to play. And mine wasn't bigger than the person in the warehouse, because ultimately what that person in the warehouse was doing had more interaction with our customer than I did. So in summary, company culture is a combination of trying to do the right things practically, making sure people are aware that they're valued and that they have ownership of what they do. If you get an opportunity as an employer to do something good for people you work with, do it every time. It is an opportunity. It's a huge, huge opportunity. But if you do all of those things, you're still not guaranteed a company culture, because I as an owner of a company or a manager of a company, I don't decide that we're going to have a good company culture and it happens. The people in there need to make it happen. So I would have seen me as a facilitator to try and do all of those things so that a good company culture would manifest from that.
And then was everyone on like a level playing field? I'm sure, everyone just feels as important as each other, and
yeah, definitely.
I feel like that's nearly unheard of. I feel,
yeah,
which is definitely positive on your sort of side of things.
Yeah, I think so. There was department heads, there was people with management positions, but those people, and I say this now with other companies that I work with, those department heads are working for the people within the departments as much as the other way around. They're facilitators to make, those people's working lives possible and support them where possible. So I think that's a really good management structure. And I had after I sold Aqualla, I had a 3-year transition window where I worked with the chief executive of the group that acquired us. It was a Swedish company, and the chief executive is a man called Fredrik Skarp, and he was chief executive for a 200 million euro company with 500 plus employees, and he was one of the most logical people that I've ever met, and he said a lot without saying a lot, and he would have very much been of the approach that if you look after people well, they will look after the business. And I didn't set out to sell the business. We were approached, and the thing that really attracted me to them, whenever I sold, I think there was maybe 60 people in the business, 7 of which were family. And if you're speaking to somebody who's considering buying the business and that person is saying to you, tell me about the people, how are the people getting on, what initiatives do you have in place to support your people, what are the really important values in the company? And these questions were coming way before what's a profit, or how do we improve our margin, or anything like that. That to me is a good suitor to buy a business. And you know, the business thankfully continues to grow after I'm gone. It grew after I sold and when I was there, and I've no doubt it will continue to grow long into the future. So if I wanted to sell for money, I'd still own the business, because it's worth an awful lot more now than it was when I sold it. Don't regret it for a day, and the biggest motivator behind not having any regrets over selling the business is nothing to do with money. It's who we sold it to, and their values, and the fact that the culture that was important to me is important to them, and continues to be. So that was a really good fit.
I was going to say, like, it's nearly handing over your baby, you know, like
It is,
something
yeah.
you've built, and
Yeah,
I guess you're giving it to, you know, someone else to.
yeah.
I suppose you have to make sure that it's the right fit too. I feel, you know, you just can't give it to.
Yeah, it really, really matters. So how this all came about, we were probably about 9 years into the business, and probably 5 or 6 years after I had left my full-time job and really started focusing on the business, and got a call from a broker who was based in England to say, I have a client who's been following your journey that would like to buy your company. And there's that moment of, oh, that's exciting, you know, this is amazing, and imagine that. But we had other calls like that, and we always kind of thought, well, at some stage we'll sell, but now is not the right time.
Yeah.
But the brokers asked if we'd be prepared to meet his client, which we did. The parent company was called FM Mattsson, and is called FM Mattsson Group. They're from Mora in Sweden. Me and my business partner discussed at the time and felt we will never get a better fit to buy the business, and that was the motivating factor to sell it. And once I'd sold it, I wasn't going to stay on long term, but agreed to stay the 3 years. And I think for a lot of people selling a business, after they sell it and have to continue working in the business until the point in time they leave, it feels like it's just a bit of a slog. You know, you've got to do it. You've said you're going to do it. For me, it was an education and a really enjoyable part of the whole journey of the business. I learned a lot. I met a lot of new colleagues from across Europe, and learned a lot of you know, important aspects around business and good values and doing the right things in business, and it was a great period of time. I really enjoyed the 3 years.
I know you're friends with like Kieran May.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
He always talks about like resilience.
Yeah.
In business and things. I was wondering, like, what has been your like biggest challenge in business? Is there something that's really stood out, like a moment you're like?
Yeah, there's some, you know, practical things that are major challenges, and then there's some personnel things that are major challenges. We had a great team of people, but along with that comes challenges, no matter how great people are. And I would say I'm a fairly empathetic person, and if something's wrong with somebody in work that you're close to and you feel responsible for supporting, you just don't walk out the door at 5 o'clock and forget about that. So that can be a burden. That can be quite a lot to carry for a business owner, an AMD, a chief executive, carrying that weight of responsibility on behalf of other people. And ultimately the buck stops with you. You have nobody else to go to speak to it about that. That's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
But the single biggest challenge for me was fairly early on in our business journey. We had one supplier based in China, and we were trading with them for about a year and a half. And it was coming up to the Christmas period, and I was trying to negotiate our terms for the following year. And I don't think I was in the wrong, but I would have pushed fairly hard for good terms. That's part of being a salesperson, business leader. You want the best. You want the best for the business. So I would have been pushing fairly hard for terms for the following year, discount, rebates, payment terms, whatever else. And I think I managed to push this guy over the edge, and he just had enough, and he said, "I'm not selling you any more stuff." And I was like, "No, hold on, whoa, I'm only joking. No, please, let me sell his stuff." And he goes, "No, I'm not selling you anything more. I don't like the way you've talked to me." And I, at the time, maybe was fairly naive and thought it was me, been pushing too hard. But he owed us quite a bit of money that we never got through rebates and so forth. But at the time, the biggest challenge was we need stock. We've built up this business. We've 50 customers throughout Northern Ireland. We're starting to supply people in Southern Ireland. We have enough stock to keep us going 3 months. Unless we get stuff from our suppliers now, there's going to be a point in 3 months' time where we don't have anything to sell. And that was just before Christmas, and I spent that, it's a common theme, because whenever I started the business, I spent 2 weeks angst. This is 2 years later, spent 2 weeks over Christmas just feeling sick with angst and worry, and what are we going to do? And we've started this business with customers, we've employees now at this stage. But we got on again, myself and my business partner Noel got on a plane the day after Boxing Day to China from Dublin, and with hindsight, that was one of the best things that ever happened to us. And for me, there's a learning in that. There's a personal learning, that even though things can quite often seem like a disaster at a time, whenever something goes wrong, quite often with hindsight, those prove to be the biggest learnings, and sometimes translate into the biggest benefits as well. So that's the biggest challenge that I've had. It's hard to describe to you now, sitting here, at the time, how the impact that had on me and how I felt.
I was going to say that. I feel like a lot of people couldn't handle that pressure, like that, the weight on your shoulders at that moment. Probably felt like the world, and a lot of people probably would have crumbled nearly. But that's probably where leaders step up. And
maybe so. I think at the time, for me, it just felt like what needs to be done. And I think whenever you're talking like this in hindsight, and I would have the same viewpoint as you, but in the day, you just get on with it. You just, right, logically, what can we do? How are we going to try and sort this out? And again, I think the common theme that's coming up as I'm talking to you here is the networks. Who can we phone? Who can we speak to? Who can help us with this? And through that network of people and people talking to other people, that scenario got resolved. If it wasn't for the network, and if it wasn't for the relationships of the people we were able to pick up the phone to, then who knows what the outcome would have been. So
having that support network.
Oh, without doubt, yeah. Without doubt.
Is that something you were building from day dot, really, or is that something you learned over time?
I think it's probably something I did subliminally from day dot, but actually with hindsight now I realise the value in network, and network, and having a good network in place it's a bit of give and take. I like to help people wherever I possibly can, and if somebody comes to me that I know that I can help with anything, I'll try and do it. But equally, I don't mind asking those people if I need support or help that they can help me with, and it has to be that way. You've got to be able to give and take.
I have an interesting one for you.
Okay.
If you lost everything tomorrow, what would be like 5 steps to getting back to where you are now?
I think leaning into what you know is always the quickest way to build yourself back up again. So I suppose I might approach it differently, because through the whole experience of selling a business, coming into money, I realise the importance of other things that don't necessarily take that money. So I might have a slightly different approach on it. I made a lot of sacrifices to build a business that I probably wouldn't want to make again. So would I feel that I could go back and build another business from scratch. I feel that my network again would help me with that. The knowledge that I have around the industry that I knew so well would help me with that. But I probably wouldn't want to make those sacrifices again. So rather than getting myself back to successful, I would probably just recalibrate and say, right, what I want to focus on for the next 15, 20 years, because wouldn't change a thing about what I've done. Would I want to do it again? Probably not. Time is finite. Is it finite or infinite? Finite is, yeah, that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Time is finite. You know, who knows how long. I'm 50 next year, so you know, we've joked about it. You're going to have to change the name of the old Hunger rather than Young Hunger. But I'm 50 next year, and if I'm here and lucky to be here for another 20, 30 years, would I want to spend 15 of that putting it into doing what I done in building a business and that be my priority above everything? Probably not. You know, I was thinking in preparation for this conversation, in case it cropped up, you know, what money have I spent that's brought me the most value? And it's not the big, massive, expensive things. I have a little granddaughter who's 4, who's the apple of my eye, Ivana, and she became a big sister 2 weeks ago, and I sent her a bunch of flowers to congratulate her, and I got a little video of her getting the flowers, and that's brought me way more joy than you know, some of the material things that if I wanted to go and buy. So
yeah.
I think there's a little bit of a learning in that for me. So I'm not sure whether that's the answer that you were expecting or wanted, but I'm not sure I would want to go through it all again.
Yeah. Are you okay for time?
Yeah, I'm absolutely great for time.
All right.
It's been good having you guys here, hang about for as long as you like. Yeah.
Yeah. There's always a section. I always say to Ross this, because afterwards, whenever we used to do like pick each other up and stuff to go to podcasts, something we always talked about coming home was like, and I would talk about this with everyone, was like rituals and like what makes you you, essentially. What does make you you? Like, is there anything you do in your day that like is a must? Like,
I focus a lot now on physical and mental well-being that I probably haven't always done in my life. So my rituals have changed.
Yeah.
Whenever I was working, it was about showing up all the time. Probably through that period didn't necessarily put myself first, and I think put myself and my fitness and my well-being is important. And I'm a big data person. I believe that getting the right data and information can influence so many things in life. And for me at the minute, I got a whoop about 6 weeks ago, and the data and information it gives me is really motivational. And I now realise the importance of sleep on health. So my daily habits now are trying to go to bed at roughly the same time every day, try and get up at roughly the same time every day. I try and exercise every day, whether it be cardio or resistance training of some sort. And I also, I suppose, realise the value in friendships and family and relationships. And every day I try and do something that you know, has a positive impact in those parts of my life. So earlier on we were talking about a business plan, and I think writing things down is really important, and there's a big discussion at the minute, and a lot of people seem to be journaling. It's something I don't do, but I see the value in it. And I was saying to you before we started about having a journal that I've never written anything in, so
yeah,
who knows, maybe at some stage I'll start journaling. But my daily rituals would be kind of looking after myself, trying to do the right things, and just trying to do something decent for my friends or family most days.
I know you're big into the cold water and things.
Yeah, I have an ice bath out in the garage, and
Think it helps?
I do, yeah. Yeah, I think there's a feeling that comes along with cold water exposure that's a bit euphoric, and it doesn't disappear. And you talked about Kieran May a little bit earlier in the podcast. So Kieran and I have become good friends over the last year and a half. And, you know, that authentic well-being, being able to have conversations is really important. And I went to one of his events. It was called The Rising Tide. And you basically go down and get in the sea. This a few years ago. And I love it. So I get into the sea from time to time. I have a nice bath out in the garage. I think after I get into cold water, I'd never enjoy it. I don't like the idea of getting into cold water. Don't particularly enjoy being in cold water, but the feeling I get afterwards of a really positive mindset. I feel good. I'm energized. Sharp focus in my mind, and my body feels good.
All things you need for the running successful business, isn't it?
For sure. So we talked a little bit earlier about the retreat that we're talking. Do you want me to?
Yeah, work away. Yeah,
happy enough to chat about that. So well-being is hugely important, and I spent 12, 13 years running a business where, to me, running that business became, you know, almost obsessive. That was, getting that right was so important for me. And I was always on. I was always thinking. I was always kind of had this level of stress that just never ever went away. And I think with hindsight, what I've done since leaving work would have really benefited me whenever I was in work. Some of that prioritizing of well-being, some of that cold plunge, some sauna, some exercise, some of those really valuable friendships, family relationships, and spending a bit of time on those would have really benefited me.
Yeah.
But I was just all into the business for that period. So Kieran, May, and myself are organising a leadership retreat for later this year. It's in October, and we're bringing 11 local business leaders away to Spain for 4 days. And the concept and idea of that retreat is to try and achieve all the things that I've just talked about. For people like me who were in the trenches, who were always on, always thinking, to get them out of that and really try and instill some methods and ways that you can totally give yourself a bit of a break. So I'm super excited for that. It'll be held in a really great location. We'll be doing sunrise yoga. There'll be a little bit of business stuff. We have Stephen Beattie, who is part owner of Seed in Belfast and Dungannon, and he's coming away to cook all of the meals, which will be really healthy and nutritious. And he's cooked for me once, and I have to say it's one of the best meals I've ever had. So the nutrition will be a big part of it as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, really looking forward to doing that. Really looking forward to sharing some of that knowledge that I've got post business, of the things that could have really helped me while I was in business, with other people.
Yeah, and sold out, isn't it?
It is, yeah, sold out. There's been a lot of interest. There's more people have wanted to go than we have space for. We could have created space, but we felt with the number that we have, it's the right amount of people.
Intimacy nearly, isn't it?
Intimacy, authenticity, giving people opportunities to really, build good relationships, good bonds, get that network thing that we've talked about going with different people, and the right setting with the right amount of people will really feed into that. So we didn't want to kind of grow the numbers beyond what would have been conducive for that.
If someone heard that or was listening to this episode and wanted to find out more about those events, is there any more coming up, or is there anything that, if people do want to get involved? Yeah,
we're gonna run another retreat in spring 2026. They could find that out either through, I have an Instagram page, but it's not public, but I have a LinkedIn profile, and if they look me up on LinkedIn or reached out to Kieran May, who does have a public Instagram profile, and we will be doing a little bit of marketing of what we achieved during the upcoming retreat post that, and hopefully if anybody's interested in going, that'll give them a bit of an insight into what to expect, and if it's of interest, then if they reach out to Kieran or myself, we'd be delighted to have a conversation.
I feel like a lot of people will probably watching this is probably right up their street.
I think so. I think there is a massive market for this. I think there's a huge opportunity for it. I think it will deliver massive value for people. We've had a conversation with Invest NI, and we're going to speak to people on the leadership program. They're keen to integrate more well-being into the programs that they run.
Yeah.
And they're giving us a space to go in and speak to people on the leadership program about future retreats. And I think that business leadership, there's an awful lot more discussion now around well-being than there ever has before. And I think it's critical and very important.
I've got a couple more for you.
Yeah, sure.
Quick
Far
ones.
away. Yeah,
Just top tips for like maybe young 25-year-olds maybe watching this and stuff. But I sort of touched on this earlier, but if there was someone like me or Ross watching this, and if you could give them like a piece of advice who are like maybe early in their journey or early in their career, is there anything you would say with the knowledge that you have?
Yeah, I don't think people need to be in a rush. I started my first business when I was 35, and I worked for a man before that who started his first business when he was 50 and sold it for many millions when he was 60. So I would say to someone who's 25, just keep working on your network. Harness the relationships with the people that you want to spend time with that actually add value. If I think back to myself when I was 25, I would say, follow other people a bit less and try and engage with your authentic self and understand what you need and what you want, and try and seek out people that kind of are aligned with those values. So it would be a combination of take your time. You have a long time. If you want to start a business now, great. If it doesn't work out, or if it doesn't happen in 5 years or 10 years, you can still always do it. And secondly, your network is so valuable. I feel like I've said network about 500 times.
It just shows you the importance of it. Yeah. Do you read any books? Do you read anything?
I read a little bit. I don't have a great attention span. Never have done. So if I'm reading, I generally try and read. I'm a big John Grisham fan. I love John Grisham books. So it's like escapism. It's just like a picking up a book and going into another world. It's like a long form movie as such. Whenever you read a good book like that.
Painted in words, nearly, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's really good. I listen to quite a few podcasts. I like getting information from podcasts, and it suits my short attention span better because I can jump in the car, put a podcast on to really connect with what's coming out, and I digest it an awful lot easier. So big fan of podcasts, including yours.
Bonus points.
Yeah.
Did you have any mentors growing up, or?
Yeah, I was very lucky to have mentors, and mentors play a huge component in life as well. I've had mentors all throughout my life, but there's probably two that stand out whenever it comes to talking about my business journey. And one is a gentleman called Bob McGowan Smith, and I used to volunteer in the Duke of Edinburgh award scheme, and it was run through a church, and Bob was on the leadership team, like on the accountancy side of the church. And Bob's a bit of a legend in the fairly small ecosystem that's in Northern Ireland in venture funds. He is a director in a company called Crescent Capital. And whenever I started work, I didn't really understand finances, and I asked Bob if he would help me, and he volunteered his time. And this is a guy who could command a lot of money, but he volunteered his time to me to really bring some financial organisation to the business in its early days. And I quite often say it was like it would have been like me if the business was a dark room, Bob come in and switched the light on. He really, through numbers, data and information, which we talked about earlier, Bob was the person who instilled that in me, and it's so valuable. So Bob was a big mentor, and then another mentor would have been a man called Stephen Bassett. And Stephen and his brother owned a local bathroom plumbing company called Bassett's. I think there's 13 or 14 branches throughout Northern Ireland. Big company, turnover of I think 30 to 40 million, sold to a French-based company called Saint-Gobain, huge global company. Stephen used to be a customer of mine, and I used to go in to him whenever I was late 20s selling shower doors. Can I swear? Yeah. Shitting myself. Like, I used to panic going in to see Stephen. He was the boss of my biggest customer, and he was a sharp cookie. Still is a sharp cookie. And I used to be filled with the dread going in to see him. But he was always very good to me. I don't know why I was filled with dread. He just has that demeanor about him, and he's a sharp operator. And it's funny because that was our dynamic. And whenever I started Aqualla, he gave me a little bit of business, and he had sold Bassett's, and then he retired. And whenever he retired, he became a really good mentor to me. Again, he gave me his time for nothing. He made me lunch in his house. He gave me steer and direction on some of the things that were really important in the business. We're friends. We go out for pints the odd time. We speak quite a bit. And it's funny now, you know, that person who I used to go in trembling to because he was the big man and the big customers is now my friend.
Yeah.
But he was a great mentor to me for a long time through my business journey as well. So yeah, we haven't talked about it much until now, but mentors are hugely important.
You do some yourself, I think.
I do, yeah. I do a little bit with Invest NI. So they run a leadership program. And on the leadership program, it's lots of local businesses. I think there's 15 on this cohort, and they're businesses that are maybe between 2 and 10 million in revenue that want to scale. And the owner, manager, chief executive go on a leadership program, and for 9 months they get a mentor that Invest NI part fund. They get a coach, business coach, and they have the other 14 people that they're on that journey with as some peer learning. So I do that with a local company. I do about a day or a day and a half a month with the owner of that company, and a lot of our work has been around structural changes in the business, those reports that we've talked about, which I think they have found really beneficial, and I've really enjoyed working with that company as well. So yeah. Bit of that, bit of mentoring, and I like to think where I get the opportunity to add some value informally in mentoring, and try and do that as well.
Giving back nearly.
Absolutely, yeah. People give an awful lot to me, and if I can give a little bit back, and vice versa, I'm still being mentored. I get the opportunity to soak up information all the time. I've sitting chatting to you today. I've learned things, and that's always I always want to learn. I don't know half of what you know, so let's have conversations and share it, so that giving and taking should always be a part of life if you want to learn and develop.
It's like having that student mindset in everything you do, nearly just constantly learning and growing. And
yeah, definitely.
One more for you.
Yeah, sure.
If you were just turned 26,
had
a podcast, had a really great cameraman, what would you do?
I would make sure I look after that cameraman. That cameraman is your everything. If I was 26, now I'm thinking back in my 20s, it's late summer, I would probably take him to Benidorm for a weekend, all expenses paid, look after him, and yeah.
Stephen, thanks so much.
Yeah, no worries. And
took a lot of a good wee bit of your time there, so apologies.
No, it's been really good having you here. It's good to chat. So thank you for considering me for coming on, and it's been good having you here.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
That has been all from the official Young Hunger podcast. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.